There's a reason Wolfenstein still feels dangerous, even after all these years. It's not just violent, it is dangerous. Because underneath all that action, all that blow and explosions, the gunfire and the giant machines tearing through walls and everything, the series has always carried this heavy sense of resistance. One man against an empire that already won. A world crushed under fear, propaganda, and impossible technology where survival itself feels rebellious. That's what made the modern Wolfenstein games hit so freaking hard. They weren't just shooting games, they felt angry, personal. And now, after years of silence surrounding the franchise, rumors about a potential Wolfenstein remake or major reboot projects have started gaining real momentum online. In fact, especially after continued speculation surrounding Machine Games' future plans following Indiana Jones and the Giant Circle, fans have become convinced the studio is preparing to revisit the franchise in a much bigger way. And honestly, the timing also feels pretty good. Because modern gaming is finally ready for shooters that care about atmosphere and storytelling just as much as action. Fast gunplay alone isn't enough anymore. Players want worlds that feel heavy, characters that feel human, stories that leave a mark. That's exactly what Wolfenstein thrives when it's handled correctly. And if those remake rumors right now are real in any form, then this probably won't be a simple graphical upgrade of older games, it will likely be a fully reinterpretation. A rebuilding of the franchise's origins, using everything Machine Games learned from the New Order and the new Colossus. That's where things become a little more exciting. Because the modern Wolfenstein identity already feels incredibly cinematic. The way those games balanced brutal combat with quiet emotional moments gave them a tone most shooters never reach. 1 second, you're destroying giant mechanized enemies in chaotic firefights, the next, you're just listening to characters trying to survive emotionally. A remake could push those contrasts even further now. Like imagine Castle Wolfenstein reboot with modern hardware, massive stone corridors illuminated by flickering firelight. That atmosphere alone could become incredible. And of course, visually, modern technology would allow Machine Games to create environments that feel oppressively alive. Propaganda systems running constantly across occupied cities, giant machinery moving through industrial districts, underground resistant hideouts just packed with civilians trying desperately to survive after fatal control. The world itself could become part of the emotional storytelling, because Wolfenstein has never really been about winning easily. It's about enduring long enough to fight back at all. One of the biggest reasons these rumors continue spreading is just because Machine Games has reportedly shown strong interest in preserving classic Wolfenstein DNA while modernizing the experience for new audiences. Reports surrounding future projects suggest the studio still views the franchise as one of Bethesda's most important long-term properties. That matters, because Wolfenstein occupies a very specific place in gaming history. It sort of helped define first-person shooters originally, but modern audiences mostly know it through the emotional storytelling and the intense combat style of the newer games. Here's the thing, a remake creates the opportunity to merge both identities together. Classic level design philosophy with modern cinematic immersion, fast movement, heavy weapons, large-scale battles, but also quieter moments where the world itself feels believable beyond the action. That combination is where Machine Games became special in the first place. And honestly, BJ himself deserves another major spotlight, because he's simply just one of the most underrated protagonists in history. At first glance, he just looks simple, a big soldier, massive guns, endless violence, but underneath that, the modern games turn him into something far more human than people expected. Someone exhausted, traumatized, constantly carrying emotional scars while still forcing himself to keep fighting because nobody else can. That emotional weight made the violence feel meaningful instead of empty. Of course, a remake could deepen that even more, especially if the story leans harder into resistance themes and psychological pressure. Like imagine occupied cities where civilians disappear overnight, underground groups constantly afraid of betrayal, and BJ himself physically breaking down from years of just non-stop war. Yeah, that side of Wolfenstein deserves even more exploration, because the best moments in the modern games were rarely just the explosions. They were the conversations between battles, the exhaustion, the fear, the realization that resistance movements survive mostly through stubbornness and hope rather than certainty. And then there's also, well, the action itself. Honestly, this is where Remake could become terrifyingly good if Machine Games fully commits to it. Because modern shooters often feel too clean now, too controlled, and Wolfenstein works best when combat feels slightly out of control. That chaos matters, and modern hardware could finally allow that scale to become absurd in like just the best way possible. Here's the thing, another fascinating thing surrounding these rumors is how gaming trends themselves have actually shifted recently. Single-player shooters are becoming important again after years dominated by multiplayer, live service models. Players now want focused narrative experiences, strong pacing, games that they can finish and remember afterwards. And Wolfenstein fits almost perfectly into that environment now, especially because Machine Games already proved they understand cinematic storytelling without sacrificing gameplay speed. Very few studios balance those things well. Either the action overwhelms the story or the story slows the gameplay down too much. Modern Wolfenstein somehow managed both, and Remake could just simply refine that formula much further. And then there's also the horror aspect. People sometimes forget how disturbing Wolfenstein can become when it leans into its experimental science fiction ideas. Laboratories filled with failed experiments, human-machine hybrids, medical facilities operating like industrial nightmares. Modern visual technology could make those environments genuinely disturbing now. I mean, we've seen that almost in Atomic Heart. Not cheap horror, oppressive horror. The kind where the player feels uncomfortable simply walking through certain areas because of just what happened there before they arrived. That emotional discomfort or weight is just part of what gives Wolfenstein its identity beyond being just another shooter. And honestly, if a remake truly happens, it may become one of the most visually impressive shooters Machine Games has ever built, because the world design possibilities are now almost endless. Occupied America rebuilt with next-gen detail, massive Nazi megastructures dominating city skylines and whatnot, resistance safe houses hidden beneath ruined neighborhoods. Whatever, that contrast between grounded human suffering and overwhelming technological oppression is where Wolfenstein feels most powerful. And that's why the rumors refuse to disappear, because people can already imagine what this remake could look like. And somewhere beyond all that noise and all the things we've talked about, the feeling of that one man refusing to surrender might still be enough to shake an entire empire.